It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show! Hey everybody, it's the Fellowship of Geek podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey gang.
And Les Webster.
Hello all.
How are you guys doing?
Surviving.
Getting through it. And you?
I'm here. Just kind of fitting in with what everybody else was saying. So what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Well, this week I did something a little different. I had gotten, this is more detail than you want for this, but I don't care. I'd gotten a gift card from Amazon, and so I decided to spend it on something that I had kind of on my wish list for a long time, but never really broke down and bought, and that is the collected series for The Young Ones. And if you are not familiar with The Young Ones, it is a British comedy from the early 80s, and it is a pretty much a groundbreaking British comedy from the early 80s because it took what was a very stodgy, strangely enough, British comedy scene and kicked it in the ass really hard. And it jump-started the careers of a lot of the people that now, nearly 40 years later, we think of as being mainstays of the British comedy scene. Most obviously is Rick Mayall. It also kind of jump-started Dawn French and Jennifer Saunders and Ben Elton, who did a lot of writing for a lot of very good comedy series over a long period of time, and that's just skimming the surface. So there are actually the 12 half-hour episodes, so it's not even a whole lot of stuff, but it's absolute zany madcap fun, and so I'm starting to watch some of those now in my spare time. Right.
That's a good choice, Mike.
Yeah, I hadn't watched that in forever.
I know They are. The last time I looked, they're on Hulu, but I hadn't been able to find them anywhere else, and I don't have Hulu all the time, so I was like, screw it, I'll get them on DVD, and then just didn't for a few years, because I mean, we have the joy of being here in the Dallas area. It was our PBS station that started bringing these things in initially. Into the country, into the United States. Nobody had ever done it before when they started into syndication. So shows like Monty Python's Flying Circus and The Young Ones and just a laundry list of other stuff, we got them before anybody else in the country did. And so I started seeing these on Channel 13, I don't know, high school, maybe as late as college. So in and around 1990, and that would have been right after I had gotten my first exposure to Monty Python, and so yeah, I mean it's pretty much defining for my sense of humor.
Very cool.
I commend you.
I'll take that.
Commend or condemn?
Commend.
Okay, all right. Okay, just want to make sure.
Get the bus ready, boys. It's backing up.
Could have gone either way, It's got the same letters. It's,
That's right. Okay, Les?
Tell you the truth, the high point of my weekend was taking a friend to a movie series that he had heard of, but did not know what to expect. And just to know that I believe he enjoyed it enough that it was driving away. Jesus. No, it was, I hope that he enjoyed it because was truly a new experience for him. And that was the AGFA film at the Alamo Drafthouse, the American Genre Film Archive. And it is known for relatively bad movies.
So what was it this week?
And we certainly did see one last night. That to me was the high point of the weekend.
Which movie was it?
It was Sweet Sugar.
Sweet Sugar.
Ooh.
And yes, I am the friend. I am the friend.
Oh, come on. You have to have seen some exploitation films before. Jeez.
Oh yeah, but I mean, the whole premise of this, for those who are not aware, is basically once a month, and it's always a Monday, right, Les?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Usually the first Monday.
First Monday of the month, they pick the movie, and you don't know until you're sitting in the theater ready to see whatever it is. And I think you talked about it last month when the selection was supposed to be Penitentiary 2, and they started showing the film, and then Stop said, this is actually Penitentiary 3. Right?
So sometimes they're not even sure.
And that was made mention too.
And the funny thing about Penitentiary 3 was the host did not know anything about Penitentiary 3, so he just said, okay, I'm going to watch it with you guys.
Cool.
Last night was an exploitation film, Women in Prison, and it was funny.
Although in this case it
not
wasn't
supposed to be.
In this case it wasn't women in prison. It was women on a sugar plantation in Costa Rica.
All right. Slave labor.
Pretty much.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean a bad script. I mean, I think I'm being generous if I said it was a half-ass idea of a story. Because it's funny, because coming home after watching the movie, I started kind of doing research on it, and they talk about Sugar being a prostitute, and I'm like, I didn't really get that impression, because all we saw was her going home with a guy, and then next thing she's getting busted for a joint, possessing marijuana. I'm like, of all the things you could have busted her for, you got her for her, and of course she swallowed it as they busted in. I mean, the whole thing, it's like, oh my god. So I knew I was in for a long ride, and of course the guard kept getting his gun stolen from him, and was none the wiser.
Nice.
Mhm. Yeah, it was bad, but it was fun. I enjoyed it, and thank you, Les, for taking me, and I will go next month.
Good. Glad to hear that.
So, this week is a special treat. We are having Peter Simeti on to talk about Alterna Comics and Make Mine Indie, which is a proud sponsor of the Fellowship. And we talk about his graphic novel that has become a live-action film and soon to be on Blu-ray and DVD called The Chair, and a few other things that are going on with the publisher. So, but before we get there, we need to take a couple of moments to thank our sponsors for supporting the Fellowship. First off, of course, we got to thank Make Mine Indie for being a supporter of us. If you go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and click on the Sponsors tab, you'll be able to access the current catalog, which is the winter catalog. It's on a free digital catalog. The spring catalog comes out March 20th. And in the catalog is about 138 pages, previews, reviews, interviews, lots of good stuff for either print, digital, or web comics that you don't even know it's out there, but they deserve to be checked out. There's some really good stuff out there. Some of them we've had the pleasure of reading and reviewing for the website. So take a couple minutes, go over there, click on the link right there underneath the logo and download that sucker and check it out, and you never know. You never know what you might find out.
Yeah, and it's a free download, and definitely jump over there and grab the winter one, and then in a week or two you can then jump over and grab the spring one because
Right.
it's free.
Exactly. I also want to thank Things from Another World for being a sponsor of the Fellowship. And they have in addition to their evergreen deals, which I'll get to in a moment, they've got one going on now for free domestic shipping on in-stock comic books and graphic novels orders of $35 or more. So while you're over there on our sponsors page, you can scroll down and check that out. And that's in addition to their regular deals, such as 40% off comics, statues, toys, and other merchandise, 30% off pre-order manga titles, and 50% off Nick and Dent comics and graphic novels. So if you click on one of those images down there below for Things of Another World, it will take you to their website, and that lets them know that we sent you their way, and take advantage of some of these great deals that are running right now.
Dude, free shipping is awesome.
Yep.
Just saying.
Well, considering we were just talking about a book before recording, a book that's about $40 that I'm interested in picking up, there you go. There's your free shipping right there.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So, without further ado, our interview with Peter Simeti. We are here with Peter Simeti of Alterna Comics. Did I already butcher the name? I'm sorry if I did.
No, that's right. That's fine.
Okay.
That's you pronounced it correctly, yeah.
Yay! I did something once. Right. Yeah.
We're nothing if not self-deprecating.
Yes. From Alterna Comics and Make My Indie, who is a proud sponsor of the Fellowship of the Geeks. Thank you for that. We wanted to have you on to talk about, first of all, a little bit of history of Alterna, and about your initiative of bringing newsprint comics back to the stores and actually on newsstands as well. Could you kind of go over that a little bit? How did you come up with this idea about bringing that back and what all that has entailed?
Yeah, sure. Usually every year since I started the company in 2006, I've been looking up how to do newsprint books. And usually every year it's the same result, not finding a printer that could do it. And it's mostly because I'm looking at the wrong printer. And up until this year, I didn't really learn which press I had to look at. And that's a web press, not an offset press. It's a different kind of thing. Web presses handle usually a higher volume, like a 25, 50,000 and higher run, whereas offset presses usually handle 500, 1,000 minimum. They don't really handle, though, the thin kind of paper stock that newsprint is, because it's a sheet-fed press. So what happens is that the paper would tear and completely get caught in the machine, and it just wouldn't work. So with the web presses, in the past, I found a couple web presses that could do newsprint, but they wanted really high runs, like I said, 25 to 50,000 minimum. And that's just not going to happen with indie comics. I mean, you're lucky at Marvel and DC to sell a book 25 to 50,000 on a run. So it just wasn't affordable, even though it was cheap. I think it's like 10 cents a book, 20 cents a book at that rate. It just wasn't going to work out for indie. But this year we managed to find a web press that could do it for smaller runs, about 5,000. And with that, I figured we could just give it a shot. And so here we are.
Cool. And the response has been overwhelmingly positive, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been kind of ridiculous because I wanted to do it kind of as a passion project thing. It was just going to be a couple of select titles and just reprinting like first issue type stuff from a bunch of the core books at Alterna, and it turned into something bigger because we got a lot of really good early responses, and then when we announced a full line, we got a tremendous response. I think it was one of the most shared articles on Newsarama, and it got a whole bunch of hits and interaction on Bleeding Cool and a bunch of other sites. So people were really excited for it, and I'm glad they are. I think maybe the $1.50 price tag also has something to do with it, but I think it's the whole aspect of getting newsprint books back on the shelves, where that really hasn't been a New Comic Book Day thing in decades. So a lot of people must be missing it.
So tell us how the current Kickstarter connects to that.
Yeah, the current Kickstarter, and when is this episode going to air? Because it's probably going to be over by the time this one airs.
We'll drop Sunday.
Okay, yeah, the Kickstarter is going to be over, I think, either Thursday or Friday. It connects with the fact that we signed a newsstand distribution deal as well. And the thought process behind that was looking into who else distributes magazines, because comic books are basically magazines. I don't know if people are aware of that or if they want to not think of them as magazines, but in the eyes of the periodical industry and everything else, they're a monthly title. It's kind of a smaller size. It's not necessarily a book, so it's a magazine. And I started looking at magazine distribution and found a distributor that was really interested and really loved it. We actually talked to, I think, 3 magazine distributors, actually. And this one turned out to be the best deal because they distribute to all the other ones that were interested in signing it on. It's not like Diamond being the only comic book distributor into comic shops. There's a whole bunch of magazine distribution systems in place. So we signed a deal with them, and with that, we're going to have a lot higher print runs. And there's a whole lot of stuff to the magazine industry that I had no idea about until we had signed the deal. Barcoding is completely different. So you need to print 2 separate covers, one for newsstand and one for comic shops. And it's not like that's a huge cost, but the barcodes themselves, the UPCs are so much money. I think minimally it's like $350 a pop. At the most you can get 20 of them for $150 each, but that's still $3,000. And the money that we had set aside for print runs pretty much got eaten up really quick getting into newsstand. So that's kind of why we launched into this Kickstarter thing, and we just put it up for like a week just to see if we could raise something. And I was pretty confident that we could raise and hit our goal of 5,000. But I'm glad people came on and people have been supporting.
Very nice. So you said this is going to be the entire line that you're going to be you'll be doing the newsprints for, or just a select number of titles?
It's hopefully we're going to be able to end up doing the entire line. I think this first year we're doing about 10 to 12 different titles, and most of them are going to be limited issue type of stuff, 3 to 5 on a series, nothing really ongoing. I think we have one ongoing title, and that's this title called Scrimshaw. That's coming out in June. But we're going to have something for everybody. It's not going to be all ages books that are just for kids. We're going to have all ages. We're going to have stuff for teenagers, young adult, mature. It's going to be the stuff that we've always been doing. It's not like we're just putting out newsprint books. We're trying to aim them just at kids, especially people hear newsstand and automatically think, okay, well, it's going to be, like everything's like Disney and everything's like a little kid kind of a thing. It's not going to be that way. We're going to have a lot of different varied books, and it won't be in every newsstand at first. And you kind of test market stuff before you get really big. So if people are wondering this summer why they can't find it at their local newsstand, it might be because of the fact that they're not in that market. So I think we're starting out in about 100 different markets, and we'll see how it goes from there. And hopefully we can expand in the fall, and then even more so in the winter.
Very nice. Very nice.
Very impressive.
Then there's even an award-winning book among the ones that you're printing. Am I right?
Yeah. Croak recently won an award for Best Limited Horror Series. They won the Ghastly Award for 2016. That book came out last year, just digital only, and a really small print-on-demand run. And we're going to be going forward with that with the newsprint line that's going to be out in May. So that's available to pre-order right now.
Very nice.
Congrats to the Croak guys.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it's a great book.
It was a great book. I remember a little plug for the website. We reviewed the first issue, if I'm not mistaken, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that little short run series. Will the chair be part of it as well?
It's interesting because the chair is going to be a part of it, but we've had 3 different editions already with the graphic novel, and I didn't want to price it already. I mean, $150 is really cheap. But I didn't want to price it at the same price as every other book we've got coming out. So it's going to be $1 an issue. So issue 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the chair on newsprint are going to be $1, and it's going to start in June and be a title that releases every other month.
Okay, that's cool. And that was a book that you wrote, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
What was the story behind? Where did the idea for the chair come from? Because I know Mike and I have had talks about the book, and both of us enjoyed it, and of course now it's a movie. So just where did the idea for the chair come from?
It came from a lot of different places, but I think mostly it came from the fact that I wanted to create a story that centralized. It was about a character that you couldn't really trust what their motives necessarily were in terms of their morals. It's an ambiguous kind of character, so you don't know if they're a villain. You don't know if you should really be hating them. It creates that kind of complexity, and I always like villains like that, especially in comics. Those villains usually tend to work the best. And after coming up with wanting to create that character, which is the character of the warden in the chair, I basically centered it around kind of the cliched prison story of someone who claims they're innocent and they didn't do the crime that they're in there for, and the story kind of gets turned up on its head in several ways. So I'm glad people have enjoyed it, and it's been cool to see it come out as a film, and it's been great to see how people have enjoyed that as well.
That has to be just an incredible feeling that not only has your story has been popular as a comic, but it has now been made into live action and given a life that I can't imagine. I can never imagine. I mean, that must be an awesome feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool because it's not necessarily like a studio option. That this is still an indie thing. Alterna mostly financed it, and we did a lot of Kickstarters and things like that, and private investors and stuff. But it's been awesome because of the fact that it enabled me to get to talk to a lot of the actors that I loved when I was a kid. Zach Galligan from Gremlins. I had a lunchbox with him on it when I was a kid. Noah Hathaway from Neverending Story, who was Atreyu. Roddy Piper, that I had bed sheets and toys, and I loved Roddy Piper as a kid. So it was kind of a surreal experience hearing that these people loved a story that I had created, and that was kind of cool. And it was really just weird talking to these people and thinking like, wow, how did our paths cross like this? It's just kind of crazy when you really think about it. So that part was definitely the coolest out of the whole thing.
And the movie has been well received and is actually coming out on a Blu-ray DVD in this fall, right? October, November, something like that?
Yeah, this fall. We're planning it to be released in early October, and hopefully that works out well, just where it's a horror thriller kind of movie. And hopefully people will get their hands on it and give it a look. There's a lot of really good performances in it as well, and even if I didn't create it, I would definitely be interested in it just because of the cast alone, and everyone did a great job at it. So it definitely deserves a watch.
Oh, definitely. Checking the cast, in addition to the ones you mentioned, Bill Oberst Jr., Naomi Grossman from American Horror Story, Susan Eisenberg, the voice of Wonder Woman from Justice League, is in the movie. That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, no, Susan's awesome. We were friends on Twitter for a while before I had asked her about having a cameo in the film, and she was like, "Oh yeah, that'd be great, and I'd love to do it." And I'm like, "All right, it's only going to be like a line or something, but I think it'd be awesome to just kind of have you in there." And she was like flipping out about it. So that was really cool. And through her, we got Ken Schreiner, who's also the voice of Green Arrow on Justice League, and he's got a cameo in it as well. So it's a really cool process of getting everybody together and and it was a blast reaching out to everybody.
That's awesome.
That is cool. So then you got to spend a lot of time on set while it was shooting?
I actually didn't get to spend any time on set.
Oh,
There was a huge historic snowstorm in Massachusetts where I was living at the time. We got like 10 feet of snow pretty much during the 2 weeks of filming. So I actually couldn't even leave. I was completely snowed in my apartment. I couldn't even leave the parking lot for 3 days because they couldn't get plows up to even get us out. So
Wow.
it really stunk that I wasn't able to go out there or anything. And especially with the unfortunate passing of Roddy Piper, I really wanted to meet him and shake his hand. I talked to him a bunch of times on the phone, but it's not the same thing. And I figured that eventually we could do a convention or something, and we'll get to meet that way. But it just didn't happen.
Man, what a bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah, Roddy was fantastic. He was such a nice guy. Everything that you'd expect from a childhood idol and more. He didn't disappoint. He was such a genuine person. Just a really nice, warm individual.
Cool. Guys, y'all have any questions? I know I've been hogging it. I don't mean to.
What was the beginning of Alterna? Why did you decide to go that route?
I put out a couple different titles on my own. It was just self-publishing, and I don't know why I came up with the name Alterna. I think I liked it because it was kind of like alternative, but there was already alternative press and alternative comics and all that other stuff. And so I just went with Alterna instead of going with something like Simeti Publishing or something like that. And I think from that point, it must have seemed like a legitimate label because I got submissions, I got emails coming in, and at first I tried to explain it away and just be like, oh, I'm just putting out my own books, I'm sorry, and I get a lot of submissions that were actually really good, and it just got me thinking, it's really unfortunate that there's so many talented people out there that really just don't even have an outlet for their stuff. And I wonder if we could all work together and have a strength in numbers kind of a thing and maybe get somewhere, together. And Alterna kind of came from that. And since that point, I mean, we've had, I think, about 4 or 5 creators that have been with the company since we started in 2006. So it's been kind of nice to see how everything's come along. And we've hit a couple of bumps here and there, but there's a lot of publishers that we started out with at the same time that they're not around anymore, and it's kind of cool that we are, and I hope we stay that way, and I hope that people enjoy the stuff we keep putting out.
Well, I know we've been enjoying the books that y'all been putting out, and yeah, it is tough. And so the fact that you've been around 10 years already, or on year 11, that says a lot. And congrats to you and everybody else.
Thank you. It's tough. It's even though I mean, everyone would love to see a company that's been around for 10 years, and you look at a company like Boom that's also around the same time as us. They got started, I think almost the exact same year. It's fantastic that they managed to accomplish what they've accomplished, and at the same time, they're pretty much one of the only ones that came out around that time that have risen to the level that they're at. And there was hundreds of publishers since that have come out. So even on that level, it's so difficult. So between Boom and Alterna and others, it shows you how difficult it is to survive in the comic industry, and that you not only have to do books that you like and books that you want to see out there, but you also have to be able to roll with the punches of the industry, especially comics. It's so volatile, and it's still so controlled by 2 dominant publishers. I know Image is really in there, but I think they only have usually about 8 to 9% of the market share. And it's usually a Marvel and DC game with them in the 40s and maybe the high 30s. So it's still far and away a number 2 with Image, or a number 3 in that case. So even with them, I mean, comics are so tough, and I'm glad we're still kicking it.
Well, and one of the cool things about Alterna is kind of the way you've embraced the idea of indie comics. And segue time, tell us how you kind of came up with the idea for Make Mine Indie.
Yeah, sure. I've been kind of kicking around the idea for Make Mine Indie for a while now. I know a lot of people thought it was just kind of thrown up overnight, but it really wasn't. It was something that I wanted to figure out how, not necessarily to become a distributor, but to become more of like a promoter, because comics, especially on the indie level, promotion is one of the biggest things that's so difficult in comics. There's a ton of different books out there, and there's only so many avenues to promote them on, and especially if you use social media, you use the stuff that everyone else uses, it kind of all becomes white noise in a way, unless you got something really special that stands out. And I want to come up with Make Mine Indie so it wouldn't step on the toes of any distributors or any retailers or anyone that was selling on their own, and kind of encompass something that people could just embrace and use however they wanted to use it, and come up with solicits and promotional pages that actually really just can give you some information about it. Because if anyone reads previews, the thing is really confusing. It's a giant book every single month, and there's so much stuff in it. I don't think it's humanly possible to really take it all in. There's so much stuff. So I kind of wanted to stay away from that whole kind of minimalizing of the covers and information, and really give creators a chance to kind of shine with their book and get a full page solicit and a big cover image and a panel, and you can get a preview page in there, and you can tell people where the book's available. So they could really get a lot of information out, and it's only like $5 or $10 for a solicit as opposed to anything else. And I've had people that say that they've made sales on the day of when the book comes out, and it's a digital thing. It's for free. It's 100% ad supported. So all the money that goes through turns into advertising money. So I think the average Make Mine Indie issue maybe makes about $500 to $600 with the solicits and the ads. So all that money gets turned right over into advertising. So we advertise on social media and on the web, and our readership's grown to, I think it's about 4,000 or 5,000 now for each time that the book comes out. And we're on our 4th issue. It's going to be out on the 20th. And it's been a nice thing to see that people have been embracing it and really think it's a useful tool. And in some ways, I wish it would be even bigger and we could get bigger publishers on board as well. I've definitely approached them. I don't know if they want to necessarily use it or if they think it's valid or anything else. But the thing is that, promotion is promotion. And if we've got people that are interested in taking a look at this stuff, it never really hurts, especially for as cheap as $5 to $10. So yeah, it's been great seeing that people are really into it. And I'm glad that we've been growing the readership.
That's very good to hear, Peter. It's good to see somebody being able to step out and get away from the catalog every month. And looking over the Make Mine Indie site, I'm really impressed with the items that you got stored in there. And I want to thank you for it.
Yeah.
It's great fun.
Yeah, no, thank you. We try to make it as available as we possibly can. Comixology has certain restrictions, so you can't feature websites and stuff. You can't feature UPC and barcoding, and you can't feature prices. And so there's a lot of restrictions on the Comixology version that don't show up in the other versions, but it's available to look at on mmindie.com. It's available on the Alterna site. It's on Comixology, like I said. We're getting it into other places as well, into getting it eventually on Kindle and on Hoopla and a bunch of other different digital platforms. So hopefully, being on all those platforms together, we can only grow the readership of it and raise awareness for a lot of these books that, about 90% of them don't have diamond distribution, don't have book distribution. So it's a lot of self-published people that there's no real way for them to get their stuff out there other than just telling people about it directly and doing the self-promotion kind of thing. And I do that kind of stuff. I still do that kind of stuff, but it's really hard when you don't have that validation of distribution, because people will dismiss that maybe you're putting out an inferior product, and that's why no one's distributing it. There's still that stigma behind indie comics that indie equals amateur, and that's just not the case for so many of them. And something's got to be done about that, and I hope that Make Mine Indie, being a professional looking publication that people really can kind of. And indie doesn't necessarily have to mean that it's second rate or that you couldn't cut it as a pro at a larger company.
Well, and to that point, I mean, with self-publishing as far as novels go, look at how far we've come in the last 20 years. I mean, it's an industry that 20 years ago you had to go to a big publisher to get your book published, and nowadays anybody pretty much can slap one together and put it up on the Amazon website. And it will be interesting to see how much longer it takes for comics to get to that point. I mean, there's a lot more work put into a comic because of the art, and there's a little more upfront stuff going on. But I mean, it's really the same concept. So the idea that you're already now getting people out there to notice some of those indie comics and some of the talent that's going on out there, it's a really useful tool.
Yeah, and I hope people continue to take advantage of it as well. I mean, it's a really difficult industry, and it's even more difficult when you're at the indie level, and you got to use it whatever's at your disposal. I stress it like crazy to the guys at Alterna about things like social media, and they turn around and they're like, oh well, it's easy for you because you've got a movie out now, and you've got like 80,000 people that want to follow you. And I'm like, guys, I'm a nobody. Like, I never worked at Marvel and DC. I never worked at Image. I never had a book out like that. I've been self-published technically, if you want to view it that way. I've been self-published almost my whole life. And I don't have a movie out because I have a lot of followers. I have a lot of followers that enabled me to build up a following that want to put a movie out. It's not the other way around. And it's really difficult, I think, for a lot of creators to understand how valuable something like social media is, because every single person that you even talk to on there or follow or you friend on Facebook or they like your page, it's an awareness, because if no one's aware of what you're doing, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You could have the greatest thing out. If no one knows about it, it doesn't matter. And someone with not as much talent as the next guy, but the next guy's got a lot more motivation to get their product out there, they're going to succeed, whereas you're not gonna. And it's a very difficult concept to try to explain to creators that feel like, well, that's a publisher's role, is to really promote my work and everything else. And I say it all the time. I even say it with me. I say, look, I really promote your stuff as much as I possibly can. But when there's 60 other books to promote and you don't really push your own stuff, you can't expect someone else to care more about your own stuff than you do. It doesn't matter if they signed a contract with you. It doesn't matter if they're your publisher. It doesn't matter if they're a distributor. It doesn't matter at all. You have to care more about your own stuff than anybody else. And if you can show that to people, and social media is a perfect place for that, if you can show that you have that passion, they'll respond. So if you're completely out of view of the public eye and you don't want to interact at all with anyone, and then you're wondering why your book doesn't do well or anything like that, that's exactly why. Because it's either an issue of your book isn't quality enough or you don't have awareness. So if you have the awareness, it doesn't even almost matter sometimes if your book's quality or not, because it's going to be there for somebody. So it's so important to build up the awareness more than anything else.
Yeah, the days of the hermit writer are pretty much over at this point.
Yeah, and even with that, I mean, we're talking about writers that they didn't become famous within their lifetime. I mean, these guys, for the most part, and even artists, the starving artist kind of a thing. Maybe they sold one painting their whole life, and then they die and their paintings are worth millions. Like, that kind of a story it's true. It's not like it's just something people have made up. It's heartbreaking as a publisher too, because I care about all the creators that I'm taking under at Alterna. And when I have to talk to these guys sometime, and the ones that have left, and I'm trying to explain, look, I really care about your work. You got great work, but you have to also support it. You can't expect, especially Alterna. I make no qualms about it. We're not Image. We're not Dark Horse. We're not IDW. We're not anyone that's got big clout that you just hear the name and, oh yeah, I'll just buy the book. That's not how it is. So you have to support it as well. We have to work together. And if it's a creator that doesn't want to work together and expects everything should be done with the publisher in a traditional way as if we were a bigger publishing house, it's not going to work out. We're not going to be simpatico with that, because we need to kind of rely on each other to pull our own weight.
Do you have the chance to read anything outside of Alterna?
Every now and then I do, but I do admit it is rare, and in some ways it's my own fault, because I really bury myself in work, and I think Alterna gets upwards of about 50 submissions a week, so it's difficult to find the time to read outside of what's being sent my way between everything else involved. But every now and then I find something I like, and I'll enjoy it. But it's so difficult, because I don't think I've read anything at all in a couple of months. So as far as what's going on with current comics, I'm aware of stuff, but I haven't necessarily sat through and read an entire book. I've read maybe a couple of pages here and there. I've seen covers. I know creative teams, things like that.
Let me ask you this, since you just mentioned you receive so many submissions a week, if you don't mind, what is your process of going through? Obviously, there's something there in the story and the art that interests you and think would be a good fit, but what else is in the process? I'm just kind of curious.
I think that's probably one of the hardest things to explain, especially when it comes to telling a creator that you have to reject, especially when a submission might seem like everything is going great with it. Like I had a submission today, I had to reject that. If I was another publisher, it would probably be great. It would be a nice fit. But it's so difficult to explain when a book is done well, it's just not necessarily a good fit. Alterna tends to put out an eclectic mix of titles. We tend to put out stuff that has a more emotion, I guess, to the story than a lot of books that tend to be polished. So the story is maybe it's secondary to the art. I like the story to always matter first. So when someone has a submission that's really good, but it just doesn't fit that kind of criteria, it doesn't make me necessarily feel something. For whatever reason, it's usually a character reason. It's usually a very plot-heavy, plot-centric kind of story as opposed to a character-central story. And I think it's so important in any story that you care about the characters, because if it's just plot-oriented, there's very few plots out there that are just so interesting that you completely can overlook the fact that the characters are just one-dimensional and you don't care about them.
Well, and I would think it would be really hard to do a plot-centric story in a serial format like comics anyway.
Oh,
because
yeah.
There's so much,
it would.
You end up doing mostly backstory all the time. And, I mean, so you're 20 pages into an issue before you get to the point.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately, that is a lot of the time what happens with a lot of rejected submissions. As long as things like the basics are there, lettering, art, and writing, and if it's anything else, if it's that one last element, it's because of the fact that overall it feels like it's a longer anthology piece as opposed to being its own thing and having its own core characters and things are fleshed out. A lot of people they'll go with a plot because that's a good pitch. It's usually when you pitch something, you're pitching the plot. You're not necessarily pitching characters. And if anything, that's something that as creators we have to move away from, trying to solely just pitch plot all the time, because you can have a great plot and then when you read it, you're like, wow, these characters are really boring though. They don't do anything. I don't care about them. So you don't really care to read the rest of the plot and get to the point of it all. And that tends to be the biggest reason as to why I end up rejecting any submission. But other than that, I mean, it's the standard stuff. If I usually find myself telling creators, just look at the top 5 books that you love and try to get yours within that realm. And I know it's hard as hell sometimes because some people are like, well, I can't write like, I don't know, Alan Moore or Frank Miller or, whoever the heck that they like. But you got to still strive though, because if you can't match anywhere close to the quality level, it's going to be all that more difficult to get the book sold, to get the book read, and to get it on with the publisher. So you really got to try to do the best you can do.
Okay. You mentioned anthology. I did see that your latest If anthology is sold out at the distributor, so congratulations for that.
Thank you. Yeah, that happened earlier today. It was kind of cool to find that out, and at the same time, I'm thinking, well, should we do another print run now? I mean, I don't want to dive into doing another 1,000 or 2,000 books just to have some lying around. So I guess we'll see how it goes and how quickly the rest of them sell out through retailers and creators and things like that. But it was really awesome to hear that we're completely sold out. We have no more to fill. So whatever's left out there is what's out there.
Cool. How did the If anthology come about?
It kind of came out because of the fact that I wanted to do an anthology with a different theme every single year. And I think the name was more difficult than coming up with the idea of wanting to do that kind of an anthology. I didn't want to just do like a sci-fi book every single year or a horror book or anything like that. I wanted to kind of have a name where we could encompass a different theme and you can still sort of keep that same title. Image did it really well with Flight. That was a really nice title to have for a book that will sort of have different stories in it and things. So it was kind of an abstract name, but I figured, If sounds like a good title for something that it could be whatever you want it to be, and it presents a premise of. I think last year was 2015 was sci-fi. Last year was superpowers and superheroes and things like that. And this year is going to be crime. This year's is actually going to be our first mature book. It's going to have like cursing and violence in it and everything else. The other ones have been kind of more like a 12, 13-year-old reading level.
Cool. Yeah, it's kind of funny. We talked in a show a few months ago about how we were how it bothered us that anthologies didn't really seem to be happening anymore, and now it seems like they're starting to pop up again. So yeah,
and it's great to see.
Sure, we'll take credit for that. No problem. Not really.
It's awesome, especially for publishers and other creators when you're trying to see, well, who the hell am I going to get on my story that I really want this kind of a look? Get an anthology. Buy an anthology and see what you like. And if you find an artist in there that you like or a letterer, or even if you're an artist and you want to work with a writer, reach out to these people. And an anthology is a great place to do that without combing through the internet and wasting, hours and hours and hours. Just get an anthology and enjoy.
Right. And again, social media makes it frighteningly easy to contact these folks.
Yeah, and especially when you're talking about hiring someone for a job. I mean, even when I was hiring people for the chair, I was getting responses from actors and actresses because I was like, hey, I've got a movie. Do you want to be in it? I'll pay you something. So there's not many people that are going to be like, oh, I'm going to completely ignore this person. You're at least going to be like, oh, well, what is it?
Well, and you're not just trying to sell them on the concept of exposure as payment. So that's also a bonus. It's almost a credibility issue at that point. You're willing to pay them, and so it's worth listening to the idea.
Yeah, it's a nice way to network, and it's also a great way to maybe you have a bigger idea kicking around and try out an anthology, because maybe you can discover, do you work well with this one person? Because if you do, then you can do something bigger with that person instead of. I know a lot of the times you'll hear writers complain that an artist is stiffing them, or they're not fast enough, or they just lost interest in a project. And, we're supposed to do like 3 issues. That's the kind of stuff that you can avoid all that by just doing maybe 5 pages on an anthology piece. And you can see, how do they work? Are they easy to work with? Are they affordable? Are they not an asshole? Because that happens a lot in this business. You never know who's an asshole until you start working with them. And you don't want to get stuck being signed on to a bunch of issues, and this person is just they go AWOL. and now you're stuck looking like an idiot, and that can kind of kill your reputation.
It takes you a year and a half to get your 5 issues out, and nobody's interested anymore at that point.
Yeah, and you can only burn so many bridges, and you can only end up being the guy that, well, you know what, if someone screws you over, that's one thing, but when you tend to constantly get screwed over, it starts to look bad on you because it looks like you just have no judgment call capability with these people. So you want to try to avoid getting involved in long-term stuff as much as you can, and it's great to do an anthology piece and test out a creative team, and if it works out well, you can springboard and get off on the next project.
Yeah, but one of my favorite demotivators is the one that says that the only consistent factor in all of your failed relationships is you.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, like you said, that comes down to basically fine-tuning if you have to. You break it down as far as fine-tuning your screening process so that you're not letting yourself get taken advantage of.
Yeah, I mean, I even had that problem when I first started Alterna. I just signed on anyone that I thought, oh, this project's halfway decent, so let's just put a print run out. And after 2 years of doing that and kind of getting screwed over left and right by creators that didn't even care to tell anyone that their book was even out. I mean, I actually had an argument one time with people about the fact that they didn't even think they needed to tell people that they had a book. I couldn't even wrap my head around that. I'm like, I just paid like $4,000 for your print run, and you don't even want to tell anyone that you have a book out? They're like, yeah, why should I have to? That's not my job.
Wow. How do you
I'm like, you're not even
Books?
excited?
Right.
I'm like, you're not even like the human emotion of being excited that you accomplished something like that?
Right. There are writers out there. There are people out there that's the only reason they put books out is so they can say, hey, I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're excited, and that's their. Oh, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean,
after getting into a couple of arguments like that, I was like, you know what, I got to adjust what I'm doing because I'm taking on people willy nilly here without even really putting them through the ringer just a little bit and seeing, do you care? Do you at least care about what you're doing?
yeah. I mean, because I follow a lot of, and I know Mike does, and obviously you do too. Follow so many creators on social media, and basically that is a majority of their posts is, hey, I got something coming out, well, check it out, you pick it up, let me know what you think, and all of that. I mean, that's it just
that's not that hard.
It's not that hard.
And honestly,
yeah, it's
I
just
love it.
It's a normal reaction, you know.
Right, and it's great for someone like me. I'm like, oh, cool. This guy has a book coming out this week. I actually didn't know that off the top of my head, so now I'm reminded, or I haven't heard about it in 4 months or something since the pre-orders and all that, and I'm like, well, cool, okay, great, put that one on the list, let's go. So it's great.
Yeah.
People love that stuff.
You know,
that's why they're following you, is so that you'll tell them that stuff. That's what
exactly.
That's what people forget sometimes.
So it's always odd when you get that mindset, and it's that kind of thing of like, well, what am I, even giving you a cut of this for? It's that kind of talk, and I'm like, what are you like? Wow, I can't even talk to that kind of person because there's such a disconnect there with how the whole industry works and how the whole process of everything is, and it's really difficult to try to find a middle ground when someone approaches you with that kind of tone. And like I said, after dealing with a couple of these type of guys, I really decided, I'm doing something wrong because I'm taking these kinds of people on repeatedly, just based on the fact that I think what they're doing is good and they're putting a lot of time into it. I mean, it takes a long time to make a comic. So if when it comes out, you don't even care to talk about that, I don't even know why you bothered to begin with, because you could have done a lot of things with the money that it took to make the comic. You could have done a lot of things with the time it took. And why would you invest all of that energy and all that money and everything when you don't really care at the end of the day? Because if you don't even care to tell anybody about it, if you don't even have that excitement that, oh, my book's out in previews, it's going to be in a comic shop, like, wow, that's crazy to me. If you don't even have that kind of excitement in you for that kind of a thing, this really isn't a business to be in, and I don't know what necessarily is a business for that kind of a person. I guess kind of just working for somebody else, and you just do your job, and that's it, and you go home and you do whatever you want to do with your life. But being in a creative, self-motivated kind of business, you really can't have that kind of attitude. So after finding a lot of people like that, I'm glad that we haven't had anyone like that in a while, and if anything, I think it shows, because we've been putting out some really awesome stuff in the past couple of years, and people have been really responding to it. So I'm glad for that.
Yep. And speaking for us, we agree. You guys are putting out some really great stuff.
Thank you. When did you guys start reading Alterna anyway? Like, do you remember what your first one was?
Honestly, I think it was the chair.
Probably was the chair.
I think it was the chair.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, even that, it's that book came out in 2008. So when people are like, "Oh, my book came out like last year, I don't want to talk about it anymore," I'm like, dude, I came out with a book like in 2008, and I'm still talking about it. Okay, so come on, man, you can still talk about your book.
It's a good thing that you're talking about a book that's a year or two old. That means it's still relevant.
Minds, right?
If people are still enjoying it, yeah, that's a good thing. That means that you've done something that's connected with other people, or people found there was something there that reached them. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there's someone every day that for the first time they're hearing Beethoven. So if that's the case, you're telling me your 1-year-old comic that it's peaked, it's hit its max. It's never going to find a new person that's going to be interested in it. I mean, come on.
Seriously, I mean, look at like Jimmy Buffett, for example. He's still singing songs he wrote 50 freaking years ago. Every day,
right?
every week, and you know what? He's happy. He's loving it. He's having a blast. People go see his shows all the time.
Or even,
good.
For comics, like someone like Stan Lee. I mean, dude's like 92, 93. I mean, he's still doing conventions and stuff. And then you get people that they don't even want to talk about their book.
It's just,
I
don't get it. Yeah, it's very, very much so.
It's always the ones that, especially now too with social media, that's another important factor is when I get submissions, especially when I'm on the fence, I go to the social media stuff and I'm like, okay, what is this person like on social media? Do they support their stuff? Is there a page filled with crazy rants? How do they behave? Because, you're kind of becoming a representative of a company more or less when that person decides to put their seal of approval on you. And sometimes you find out later on and things like that. But if you're on the fence about someone, and this goes even for people in bigger companies like Marvel and DC, they'll look at your social media and they'll go, wow, like you're an awful person. I don't think I want to work with you. So it can turn around and bite you. So I know some people, freedom of speech and this and that, but freedom of speech is a government thing. It's got nothing to do with an employer.
Exactly.
Right. Absolutely. If you gotta pay attention to your personal branding, because why would a publisher want to pick up and take over that if it's horrible, right?
Yeah, and if just on the level of wanting to know someone, do you want to talk to someone all day long that's always kind of like really negative and just like in your face about everything, or do you want to talk to someone who's kind of positive and they're sharing and they're like, oh hey, check this out, and you want to talk to that person, you want to hang out with that person, you don't want to be around the rain cloud type person all day long, and that's the same concept with getting these kinds of creative jobs, especially, and even other jobs. I mean, social media matters a lot nowadays because that's what people use. That's what people communicate with. So something like that with creators, when I see that and I'm like, wow, I mean, this guy's kind of a headache and I don't even know him yet. And his social media is driving me like kind of nuts already because it's so negative. All I could think is like, I can only imagine what this is going to be like one-on-one doing business with this person. And you wish it wouldn't be like that. But unfortunately, in my past experience, when I've tried to ignore stuff like that, it always comes around to haunt me again, because that is what that person's like dealing with. It is a nightmare dealing with a person like that, and it's very difficult. It's the kind of person you offer a suggestion of how to sell more books, or hey, do this promotion, or hey, maybe we could do this and get people interested, and they'll be like, nah, I don't want to do that. It's like, okay, well, don't wonder then when your book doesn't do well if you don't want to support it. So when they get combative like that and kind of aggressive with stuff, it's very odd. It's an odd thing, because I'm only here to help people. I'm not here to force people to do anything. I don't do editorial type work. I'm not telling creators change your story because that's how I want it to be. Any changes that I'm suggesting ever, it's usually like the lettering needs like a font change, or let's tweak the logo on the cover, or something like that. It's always for an improvement purpose, and it's not because I'm thinking like, oh, I just want to change this because I'm like a control freak. I gotta just change stuff. It's I know people get ownership on their stuff, and that's perfectly fine, and that's great to see. But when I'm like, okay, maybe we go with this color combination instead on the logo instead of something else. I'm saying that because it's going to help the book to stand out. It's going to help the book to sell, and ultimately, it's going to help people to read the book, which is what you should want. So, any kind of changes or suggestions, it's always with the creator in mind and trying to help them to succeed. And unfortunately, sometimes egos, I guess, clash, and creators might not see it that way. But it's always important to kind of try to work together, even to kind of compromise on a creative project.
All right. Any other questions? Wes?
Peter, I would just like to thank you for the insight. We're readers, but we don't necessarily know everything that's going on in the background. You've obviously got a lot of control over this now with your publishing company and of course, Make Mine Indie. And I just want to thank you. It's great stuff.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on. I mean, if you guys got any questions about anything else, you want to pick my brain, just go ahead and ask.
All right, tell us where people can find you.
You can find me on Twitter is probably the best place, at Peter Simeti, or the company at Alterna Comics. And you can go to alternacomics.com.
Awesome. Sweet. Thank you again for joining us.
All right, thank you. Thanks for having me.
All righty.
Thanks a lot, Peter.
And we're back. It is time for our weekly picks, and leading off is Les.
My first pick this week is from Image Comics. The name of the title is God Country, issue number 3. If you haven't been following God Country, and I believe we may have even mentioned it in a previous podcast, it's well worth the time. With how do you explain what exactly is going on? But in this issue, the Quinton family, who reside in West Texas, are facing the gods. And in this one, they are finding what the price of resurrection is when they face death. This is a book by Donnie Cates and John J. Hill. And I also bring this up because Donnie Cates is doing a book coming up very soon with Lissandro Estron called, now I can't think of it, Redneck, which is an upcoming book, another family living in West Texas. They are situated in Sulphur Springs.
That's East Texas.
East Texas, sorry. The premise there is that the family is a family of vampires, and they are facing the people of Sulphur Springs. And there's just, I read the first issue in an ash can, and trying to figure out exactly what they're going to be facing, because there is an evil presence in the town. And to me, they have not explained if this is another band of vampires or something else that they're going to have to be facing. But God Country is well done, it's well paced, and the artwork is really, really good. So if you get a chance, go back and find issues 1 and 2, and then pick up number 3.
Yep.
Very cool.
Yep.
It's been a good.
I like that one.
Yep.
And
I think we're unanimous on this one.
And you said it was hard to describe. I'll take a quick crack at describing it.
Please do.
Imagine, a small town in Texas. The patriarch of the family is getting up there. He's got Alzheimer's and clearly a temper, until one day when the father of all swords falls from the sky, and when Dad picks it up, his mind is functioning perfectly again. And then when the gods show up to take the sword back, because his mind is functioning perfectly again, he says no. And
that works.
Needless to say, that doesn't go over well with the gods, and that's where your story comes from.
Yep.
But yeah, lot of fun.
Yep. Good choice. I am next, and I'm going to continue the Donny Cates love with a book from IDW, and it is Star Trek Deviations. And Deviations is their kind of what-if scenarios or Elseworld scenarios that Marvel and DC had done in the past. Basically, it could be a story arc, or it could be just a certain situation where we know it goes one way, but in this case, it deviates. And this particular one I said was written by Donny Cates with art by Josh Hood. And the premise is that instead of the Vulcans approaching Earth and becoming friends with us, that the Romulans arrived first and basically turned Earth into a prison planet. So kind of an interesting little kind of a switch. So it'd be cool to see what he does with that. And you'll see some of the characters that we're familiar with. The synopsis mentions Riker and a few others. So it would be worth checking out, especially since I'm enjoying Cates' writing. So it'd be cool to check out.
Yep, I think so too.
Mikey, you're next.
All right. I'm on an image kick this week. My first one, and this is actually, both of mine are books that are coming off a hiatus. So the first one, and this is not going to be any shock to anybody who's ever listened to this show, I Hate Fairyland, number 11, is coming out this week. It's back! And I am so excited. And the synopsis here talks about Fairyland's annual Dungeon Con. So the cover that it shows is hilarious because there are cosplayers involved.
Dun, dun, dun.
So yep, I'm all over this, and you should be too.
Did you see the cover for the alternate title?
No, I haven't looked at the alternate cover yet. I got to do that.
It's so funny. And yeah, it is Scott Young again.
Oh, yeah, that one's not safe for work. Cool.
They generally aren't.
No, not so much. That's great. Les, you're next.
Alrighty. Yeah, Les, you're next.
I am looking at Airship Enterprise, number 4, by Antarctic Press. Brian Denham is the writer and artist. I bring this one to the forefront because it is the last of this miniseries, number 4, which has taken about a year to get out. It's a good read. It's a fun read. It's science fiction. It's comedy, but it's not strict comedy. The jokes are there, but it's not, hey, you better laugh at this one. There is a story for it. And I'm just happy that they're going to finally finish it. Number 3 came out in, I want to say October, if not earlier than that. And it's just, we just waited way too long for this. But I'm ready for it and ready to finish up the story. Of course, I'll have to go back and find the issues and reread them, but that's okay with me.
You were just waiting for an excuse to do that anyway, right?
That's right.
Well, there is that, yes.
Okay. My next pick is from Vault Comics. It is Heathen number 2, written and illustrated by Natasha Alterici. The first issue was so great. I did a review for it.
I seem to recall we, I don't want to say argued about who was going to review that one, but we talked about it.
There was some discussions on this one. Yeah, that's true.
It's that good.
Yeah. Adis is the main character, and she has been cast out of her village for a quote-unquote unnatural act. So she goes on the quest to rescue Brynhild the Valkyrie, who is trapped. So this is the continuation of this story. So in this issue, she will actually, or at least attempt to do the rescue, but we'll see what happens considering that Brynhild it's inflicted from the Odin's curse. So I enjoyed the first issue, so I'm really curious to see where we go from here. Really good book. I did the art. There was just something about that art. It was different, but I mean that in a good way. It was just something original, I guess. But that still kind of pales because I did really enjoy the art, and it was a good story. So I want to see more.
Agreed.
Mikey.
Okay. My other book is, like I said, an Image book. It is Injection number 11. This is Warren Ellis and Declan Shalvey, with Jordy Belair doing the colors, of course. And if you're not familiar with Injection, well, for one, it's Warren Ellis and Declan Shalvey and Jordy Belair. Get on it, geez. But a group of, and it's set in England, not surprisingly, a group of people, specialists in their fields, got together at some point in the past and created an AI, and I hesitate to use the phrase turned it loose on the world, but that's essentially what ended up happening. And now they have that group kind of went their separate ways for a while, and the first arc of this book was them kind of getting back together in order to try to figure out a way to stop the injection. The second arc focused on Headland, one of the characters. He's kind of the detective. And this arc will focus on Bridget, who was kind of the programmer, the computer expert. This is, it's just, oh man, it is just so good. I don't want to go into detail because I don't want to spoil this thing for anybody because it's that good. This is a really good book.
Yep. Surprise, surprise, another Image title.
I know. Gosh, isn't it crazy? They keep putting out good titles, We're just going to have to keep talking about them.
Yep. I have an honorable mention. It's from Marvel Comics. It is a collection. It's Excalibur Epic Collection, Sword is Drawn. And this collects the first 2 specials in the first 11 issues of the book Excalibur. And for those who may not be familiar with the title, here's your chance to get this. It was I don't want to say it's an X book, meaning X-Men, but there were X-Men in it. It was the roster at this time was Captain Britain and Megan, Phoenix, which was Rachel Gray or Rachel Summers, Shadow Cat or Kitty Pryde, and Nightcrawler. The main book was written by Chris Claremont with art by Alan Davis, although in this collection there's issues from different series, so there's various writers and artists. It collects Captain Britain 1 and 2, and as I said, the first 11 issues of Excalibur and the special editions, and then some material from Marvel Comics Presents and Mighty World of Marvel, which is actually a Marvel UK title. So it would be nice to kind of go back and look at these books again, because Mikey and I were fans of this series back when it came out a while back.
Back in the day.
Mikey, do you have an honorable mention?
Well, if you're going to catch me like this, I will throw out at least a mention that Eclipse number 5 is coming out, which is, strangely enough, another Image book, but another really fun series. This is the start of the second arc, if you're not remembering. I know we've mentioned it. I think I either reviewed the first issue or we talked about it on the show. I forget which, but it's Eclipse is an Earth, near future Earth, in which the sun kind of caused a little bit of a cataclysm when it just kind of all of a sudden started burning people alive. So, needless to say, the survivors moved underground and things just got interesting from there. So, new arc here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fun one.
Cool. Yep. Do you have an honorable mention this week?
Yes, I do. My honorable is Will Eisner, The Centennial Celebration, 1917-2017. Will Eisner would have been 100 years old this year, and this is a book, a collection of stories, some interviews, and it's taken from artwork mainly from the museum, the French museum, see if I can get this right, Le Musée de la Bande Dessinée, and also the Society of Illustrators. They are having a showing of Eisner's work, as famous as he was, as noted, as much a progenitor of comic books and obviously the graphic novel. I am a big fan, of course, of her, and unfortunately I can't go to France to see this, but this collection I think would be fun to have as a nice coffee table book and a reference book.
Wait, why can't you go to France?
I'm banned.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is all about the mooning incident on the Eiffel Tower, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is. Trying to get minds to talk, things like that.
Good choice. Alrighty. Any shout-outs this week? Any special shout-outs?
Just thanks to Peter for joining us. And
Oh, definitely.
That was enjoyable.
Yep, I agree. I'll make it unanimous again. Alrighty. So let's get into our regular shout-outs. First of all, of course, we want to shout out to Manny the Martyr for the awesome music that is for our show. Great group of musicians, great group of guys. Definitely check them out. There's a couple ways you can. You can click on the link on our show notes or go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and go to our podcast page. You will see their logo. Click on that, and that'll take you there. Thank you, guys. Also want to say a shout out to Potter and Family, hashtag Potter and Family on Twitter, for spreading the word of the fellowship. Great group of fellow podcasters out there. There's a podcast on just about anything that you can think of. All you gotta do is go over to Twitter, whether you have an account or not. Doesn't matter. Just do a search, for hashtag Potter and Family is one word, and just look around, and it's there. You'll find it. Thank you guys for spreading the word, and we've been trying in our earnest to return that love. So thank you guys. And also, you, dear listener, thank you for downloading this and previous episodes. Thank you for listening. We always appreciate it, and we always welcome your feedback. If you have any questions, suggestions, comments, we're always open to them. We always want to hear from you. There are several different ways you can do that. One is to go to our website. Once again, that's www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. Click on our About Us tab, and there's a contact form there. Or you can just send us an email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and we will get that. Of course, we're all on social media, Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks, one word. Please like us, and you send us a message that way. Or you can follow us on Twitter. Obviously, we're on Twitter, at Fellowship Geeks. Give us a like, and send us a message. Just say hey, or just tag us and say, hey, following you, great show, whatever. Just let us know. Mikey has his own Twitter account, at Mikey Geek, and I have one as well, at TomTC Geek. Feel free to give us a follow and just shout out at us, and we'll say, hey, thanks for following.
Yeah, we're pretty good about replying.
Yep. Wherever you download our episodes, whether it's iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or you listen to us on YouTube, please rate us, whether it's the thumbs up, thumbs down, or stars, or whatever else. Just if you could, just take a couple seconds to do that. And if you have a little additional time, a review would be greatly appreciated. Just let them know what you think of our show. Do we have a question of the week?
I don't know. I'm tempted to ask about are you banned from any countries? Yeah, sure, why not? What countries are you banned from entering? For whatever nefarious reason.
Beep, 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 beep.
Speaking of questions, we are accepting questions for a feature episode, a Q&A episode. So if there's a question that you'd like for us to answer on a podcast, please contact us through those different ways that I said about a moment ago, and we may use it, and we'll do a shout out to you saying, hey, this is your question, thank you, and here's our answers.
Yep. We'll do that soon.
Yeah, we'll need to do that here real soon.
Yep. It'll be fun.
Anything else?
No, just thanks, everybody.
I agree. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Y'all take care. Love you guys. Until next time, read more comics and support your local stores. We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,